I'll timestamp this for sure. James, we're going to talk about some interesting topics, I believe. You wanted to talk about progressive overload and principles on here. I'm going to talk about proteins. I'm a doctor of nutrition, and I think that's an important thing to talk about. So I'm going to let you take it away here. I'm going to come in with some questions, and we want to close out this section and move on. So tell us about this, James, and your principles and
Yeah,
progressive overload.
we just wanted to sort of have, we'll call it like the little science-based topics somewhere in the middle,
Yeah.
so we can still shoot the SH1T from the on these podcasts, but we'll pick a topic where I will cover, which will probably be more from the practical elements in the gym environment. And Andrew, using his high level of expertise, will obviously be discussing the nutritional science and just try to make these as applicable to the audience. So anybody that's watching, most people that are going to watch this are either people that are wanting Andrew to send them dirty trunks, or or
I'm still waiting for this PayPal money to come my way.
I'm sending it later. Or, uh, or or it's going to be bodybuilders or people just wanting to kill a bit of time on their CV, which I completely understand. Yeah, so
Oh
my
God,
top,
imagine us in your ears for the CV.
yeah.
Go on.
So my topic was progressive overload.
Yeah.
This is probably one of the most discussed topics in the pursuit of muscular hypertrophy. Okay, so I've actually seen a few topics coming up this week. You know, people sort of arguing around this sort of basis, and it's kind of like
Okay.
the chicken or the egg. You know,
Yeah.
what is progressive overload, and people look at it going, "This muscular size allowing you to move more weight, pushing more
Hmm.
weight to encourage more growth."
Yeah.
I think we are going to put in a couple of little diagrams and stuff into this. What I'm assuming Andrew's going to do that because he's more technical than me. But I'll do a couple of slides and we can sort of input them, and it's just sort of like basic sort of visuals so you can sort of see what that looks like. So whenever we're thinking about progressive overload, I think about this cyclical concept where we have progressive overload and then we have building muscle. And I call that sort of the adaptation cycle. So progressive overload, so we're increasing one of, in my opinion, potentially six components, one of or more. As a result of that progressive overload, we increase muscular size. That's through damage, elevation of protein synthetic response, muscle protein synthesis, and then we end up coming back around to be able to progressively overload because as a byproduct of building more muscle tissue. So we have to look at progressive overload having kind of two factors. We look at the short-term adaptation. So like what is that? So before there's evidence of muscle growth, what is essentially progressive overload and how does that adaptation occur? Well, that's going to be like a neuromuscular adaptation. So we look at how the central nervous system actually adapts to locking in certain profiles. So once we start to lift a certain weight, it's next week you've been able to lift more reps or more weight. It's not a byproduct, obviously, of you building more tissue to be able to generate more force. It is just refinement of whenever we're looking at the nervous system becoming better at sort of recruitment of those muscle fibers locked in on those specific factors. So it just becomes
That, that's really nice, James. I wonder if I can just come in here just for a second. So you asked me to pull this up, right? So here you have it. This is a nice graphic for you on this one. And in fact, you know what? I'm gonna get a different one actually on this. Just relating to that point that you made about muscle size and cross-sectional area associated with
yep.
strength. I'm just going to get up here. So here you go. This is individual muscle size plotted against isometric force, and it does just support that thing that you're just saying on here. So cross-sectional area, that is muscle size. This is fiber type. And then this is isometric force measured by an isokinetic dynamometer, which is a fancy leg extension machine, or you can set it up to do things like bicep curls as well. And this type of machine will also measure things like force development and so on. So these are individual data points from people that are plotting them from different people, and you can see it's a really nice relationship between the two, right? And you get this number here. This is an R squared value, right? And that R squared value is 0.57, which means we can explain the relationship between those two things around about 57% from those two things, which means we can't explain how muscle size or strength is getting bigger to the tune of around about 43%. So there's other things going on in that equation which fits in really nicely with what you're just explaining here as well about efficiencies and recruitment patterns and everything like that as well, which also explain it. So it's not just as you say, bigger muscles means more strength. It fits in beautifully with what you're just explaining there. And I thought that was really important for me to come in on here. And don't worry, I'm going to come in with another graphic in a second after this, which is going to support that next thing that you're saying. Does that all make sense?
We're all on.
Excellent. Sorry, go on, continue. I'll bring up this next one for us as you go on with this.
Yeah, so for us, we have to look at what happens in the initial phase and whether that's somebody starting training from scratch. So they'll have like a lot of progressions in terms of their ability to move load. And that's just neuromuscular recruitment, as we talk about, sort of that adaptation, where the body, the brain is being able to coordinate those patterns a little bit more effectively, allowing you to generate more force, direction of force. So
it's like skill acquisition, right?
That's all it is, right? So, and it's going to be the same with whenever I take even advanced athletes into, so I'll discuss that in a little bit, take them into new programs. So most of the people that I work with on a training perspective, they kind of understand my methodologies and program design. This is also, even with experienced lifters, the first sort of 1 to 3 weeks, I am going to be that guy that's sort of going, let's keep some RIRs, so keep some reps in reserve. That just allows you to focus on the articulation and the skill, the accuracy of those movement patterns without actually having to go near failure. Failure is a distraction to a skill because your brain is then essentially going to be distracted by the difficulty, metabolite buildup, it's going to become harder to stabilize those movement patterns, in particular free weight movements as well. So that's kind of what we have to look at in terms of the short term. The first week 1 to week 3 in my program design, I would have them lower RPEs. Once they've refined the skill, we've got the patterns locked in, then we can start to be a wee bit more aggressive with adding reps, weight, the other sort of concepts I would use, which would be like either increasing intensifiers, increasing sets, increasing frequency, and those are other methods that we would use to implement in terms of progressive overload as well.
Excellent stuff, James.
Really anything more with the short-term adaptation that you want to put up?
Yeah, I do. So yeah. I'm gonna bring this up now as well, just to support the points that you were making on here. So for anyone who's listening to this, this is a paper and a graphic that I've just taken out of a paper that sort of explains how muscle hypertrophy works, right? And what we've got here is you've got at the top of this graphic, you've got 3 different sort of factors on here. You've got the resistance training itself, and different sort of rep ranges, so anything between 10 to 30. You've got rest interval manipulation as well. You've got concepts such as muscular failure and continuous muscle tension. We've also got blood flow and blood flow restriction. And then you've got all-out efforts on here as well. All of these things contribute towards metabolic stresses. Yep. Which I think is very, very important to sort of appreciate and realize that they all kind of go through the same sort of pathway on this, regardless of what you're doing. You're always causing that metabolic stress. They're also all developing a hormonal release and a hormonal response. They're all developing a degree of hypoxia. And when we talk about hypoxia, we're talking about the restriction of oxygen getting to the muscle. They're all getting a degree of reactive oxygen species generation. So that is oxidative damage being developed by the mitochondria within the muscle cell itself, just by virtue of the respiration that might be going on, but also the damage which occurs from the hypoxia. And then you were referring to the sort of acute adaptation as well. You're getting cellular swelling
Yeah.
taking place here as well, which can be both short term and long term. And we've all had DOMs, so we experience that long term edema. Now, you've got all of these things, and the adaptations to that is muscle hypertrophy. You've got angiogenesis, which is the development of more blood cells to transport oxygen to the muscle, but you also get mitochondrial biogenesis as well. And that is the adaptation whereby your cells become more effective at generating energy within them as well. Because remember, your body's just trying to adapt so that it can generate energy more effectively, then it can deal and cope with that stress better as well, alongside developing those thicker fibers. And the final thing I'm just going to pull up here to support this sort of stuff is you've got to realize that progressive overload can occur through lots of different pathways and mechanisms. So there's lots of different things available to you, which is one of the reasons why lots of different styles of training can be effective. But when we're talking about your particular styles of training, we're also talking about a great degree of accuracy in what we're doing as well at the same time. So hopefully that supports and backs up what you're saying there. And is that helpful, James?
Yeah, that's bang on. That aligns well.
Oh, no problem. No
Yeah.
problem. Hopefully I can bring up some other good graphics for you.
Yeah. So if we like just sort of simplify, because most people,
Oh yeah, please do.
whenever we're talking about the methods of progressive overload, I kind of break them down into kind of simple, moderate, and more difficult or advanced. You can sort of categorize those.
Yeah.
And for me, there's two kind of models in each one. So whenever we're thinking about what's the most frequently used, so everybody kind of knows even from beginner level, it's a simple process of one, adding more weight, two, adding more reps. So these are the most frequently used, even in less experienced lifters. Experienced lifters, we're still utilizing that as well, but quite often we may put that further back in favor of the things that are more difficult. And that means things like improving the basic techniques. So that's going to be your active range, locking those in, locking down tempos, which is a fan that I'm of as well. Just make sure that I'm assigning those in programming methods too.
Yeah, they're so good. I wonder if I could just come in a wee second here on this one. The tempo stuff's so important, James. When you're working with guys, and when I see guys just training in the gym, and when I work with guys as well, you quite quickly realize that a lot of guys training is dog shit.
Yeah.
Right? There's so little activation, right? They're not getting decent mind muscle connection. And a lot of the time it's just because they're speeding through reps, going so fast. They've got a rhythm, but the rhythm is poor.
Yeah.
So I always prescribe tempos, and some very simple tempos just to come at you as a 2-second eccentric, a 2-second concentric with a 1-second pause at the top or the bottom. Just if guys can do that, then the quality of their training will improve probably by 70-80%, just that one point alone.
Without a doubt. So the two sort of the difficult ranges would be is that one, because most people, whenever you just start training, you're not really particularly thinking about active range. Even though the newly qualified PT, we're talking about full ROM, and range of movement is not really. I'm not an advocate of that terminology. I think it can be almost like counterproductive and dangerous. So like imagine like I see people using, if you use like a cambered bar bench press, thankfully those kind of practices are dead in the water for most part. Maybe powerlifters may still implement those as.
I've done a cambered bar many a time, by the way.
But
I've abused my body.
Yeah, whenever you think about those patterns, that's still considered a full range of movement, like as far as a joint can move. But quite often for us to get into the extremes of the angles of those joints, a lot of that musculature that crosses the joint has to become passive. And whenever a muscle is passive, there's less stability of the joint. So you're exposing it potentially to irreparable damage. And for me, then the phrase that I use with incorrect English is on purpose, by the way. If something is good, more of it is gooder. So we know that the stretch is very good in terms of that stimulatory effect. So most people think, oh, if a stretch is good, then more of a stretch is gooder. So I obviously want to fold my knee in half on a leg press. That's become more and more fashionable. I'm seeing some people move away from that, thankfully. For me, it just creates just too much instability and there's too much potential for damage at the bottom. So I think enough of a stretch in a muscle is probably more optimal for muscle growth while still preventing any sort of downgrading of the joint itself. So focusing on those, the range and tempo is, I think, a more difficult thing. So it's more running in alignment with more experienced lifters becomes more important. The reason being is if somebody's just started lifting, they can do a lot of the wrong things over and over again and still get growth. But
Oh
eventually,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, just literally putting weights away
yeah,
will
but
will make them bigger. But it's once they've been training for a while, they sort of, if you've got anything about you, you should
yeah,
sort of realize, right, okay, I've plateaued,
some
and
people don't.
things have now got to change. If
Yeah,
you've got anything about you.
yeah. So the two sides of the difficult is really understanding your tempo and your range, so we can with the tempo, it's going to align with better mechanical tension. We're maintaining that tension. Whenever I think about mechanical tension, I'm thinking about the lights on in this room, and we're working on
Yeah,
a dimmer switch rather than a light switch.
which I think is a great sort of metaphor.
Yeah, so we're turning it down and up, but we're never turning it off. And whenever we have that, like I just consider that sort of electronical conductivity to that light bulb a constant flow of mechanical
Mm.
tension and mechanical energy. So we kind of want to consider the contraction to be like that rather than on off. So that's where the tempo comes in. The active range, making sure that we are using profiles that allow the muscle to lengthen, but we're still retaining the stability of the joint, I think is imperative for most movements as well. The other part of the difficult one then is improving the advanced techniques. So Andrew, came across and we were running seminars together where I was doing the training methodologies on the gym floor in the practical workshop, where I was talking about the utilization of internal or external cues in order just to get better overall contraction and maintenance of that contraction. So
Okay, let's just on that a second for people who are not familiar with these terms. When we're talking about an internal cue, that's quite literally that mind muscle connection. That is your ability to, am I feeling my muscle activating through the range that I'm trying to break it through? Is that a correct or a fair
yeah,
definition?
yeah,
And when we're talking about external cues, that's almost those coaching points that someone might say to you, right? Okay, keep your elbow tucked, follow the pattern of the cables pulling you, or go out of that range. That's those sort of cues. Is that a fair assessment, or have you got a slightly different take on that?
it's almost like an action outside of the body. So we're considering like driving the bar away. So
Yeah,
a lot of external cues would be very effective for force production, and that's been proven.
yeah, that's that power lifting stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And it has its place even in hypertrophy because we're still, even though
Oh
we're
yeah, yeah.
moving muscle, we're still trying to move weight. That's key. Because trying to do these moves with accuracy and all those things is irrelevant if the weight doesn't challenge the pattern. So we need to make sure that we're coming at it from. I'm not saying old school, new school, old school lift heavy and go absolutely nuts, or new school lift light and be technical and keep the light.
No, I think you need it more. Sorry, you need it both. You need it both for sure.
There is a mix in there, I think, as long as technique is on point. But for me, the difficult ones, particularly the utilization of cues. If you're not really up to scratch on those, then that's where maybe outsourcing a coach can, a good coach can take you through those to actually elevate your game. So regardless if you are already a good bodybuilder, if there's still potential for you to be better, then don't keep doing the same things over and over again. If you do feel that you've actually plateaued in your physique development, start to outsource and outreach and see if there's other people that can actually take you to that next level. So sometimes it's not a genetic ceiling that's holding you back. It's your awareness and your toolkit that doesn't allow you to break through that plateau.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a good example. I mean, I think you're great at this stuff. Genuinely, James. When I made, I mean, I train myself a lot of the time for sure. And when you train yourself, you can get complacent and you miss things and so on from here. So yeah, certainly when I came across one area for me, which I've really been trying to work on for years, is back development for sure. And just working with a few more of these little cues, I think has really helped me develop even better internal cueing
Yeah,
as well. And you know what? I think that having worked with you, I can train longer and healthier probably in terms of my bodybuilding career compared to what I've done in the past, because I, coming from a power building background where you do points one, which is more weight, and point two, more reps for such a long time. And here it was very successful, very successful. This is adding more quality and certainly more longevity to my career for sure. So we've got more weight, we've got more reps, we've got active range, we've got tempo, we've got improved internal cueing, external cueing, and we've got improved advanced techniques. So, sorry, I've jumped in here
Yeah.
and we'll go with this. So, where we go next on this one, James?
Yeah, so those, like for me, those are the six models. We're just looking
Okay.
at. I kind of look at those all kind of like separate. They all interconnect, particularly the difficult,
Yeah.
moderate, and stuff. But there's two for me in each category: reps and weight, which is the basic or the sort of simplistic approach. The moderate then is to do with frequency and using intensifiers, intensity techniques. So we're just accumulating more total time under tension throughout the course of a week or any time period. And then we have, as we just discussed there now, about the sort of technical elements, talking about range, tempos, and then the ability to utilize cues so we can actually bias specific muscles. And this becomes really important whenever somebody's already developed a pretty good physique,
Yeah.
but they are missing, or they've got areas that are just slightly under development, and there's generally reasons for that. And quite often with great athletes like yourself, Andrew, it's not for a lack of effort, it's not for a lack of consistency, because you don't get your kind of physique without all those in place.
Sure.
But for you to kind of raise your limit even by another 1% or 2%,
Yeah.